So, hello everyone. I am Faisal Qayyum, and today we'll be recording this podcast about how to quickly and effectively write a nice thesis. And we are here with Hari. Can you please quickly introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, my name is Venkata Hariyar Mahavadi. So I'm a master's student here in TU Freiburg in the field of metallic materials technology, and I specialize in metal forming. And currently I'm writing my master thesis in the field of electromagnetic forming, that is electromagnetic forming technology. And I would like to ask some queries and also share my experience, and also get some information from Dr. Qayyum from his experiences, so that we can share you people some information about writing thesis and how to, let's say during writing thesis, we have a lot of problems, and we would like to discuss about these problems and how to overcome these problems and all the other information.
Yeah. So, I was telling Hari before that he's not alone in getting this writer's block. Everybody faces this. And I experienced this very first time when Corona struck. So I had a lot of results. I wanted to write about them, but I always thought because I do not have enough time, because I have so much to work on, therefore I'm not able to write. But then later what I realized was that I had a lot of time at hand, but I was still not able to write because I had other problems. Long story short, I watched several YouTube videos, I read a lot of books, and then realized I came to know about tips and tricks I had to work on to effectively improve my writing, and eventually I did. And that is what I have been sharing with a lot of people in the recent past using Writing Club. So what I start with is I start with understanding the limiting beliefs, right? So usually as writers, what we believe is that only if we had enough time, right? So
Yeah,
if I had enough time, I could write more. There is another limiting belief that sometimes when we start writing, we realize, oh, I do not have information or knowledge about it. Maybe I should read about it. Then I will be able to write better about it. So instead of writing, we go towards, okay, search this paper, read this, understand it, and then what is this equation and what do these charts say? Oh, I have not produced them in my work, and then we forget about writing, right? There is another very nice limiting belief, which is I need better tools to write better, right? So I want to have this word editor with this plugin or this app or subscription to this tool, or I want to have a better computer or a better place, or I want to have a better keyboard or mouse, and then I will be able to write better. I'm not able to write better because I do not have the right tools, physical or digital, right? Sometimes this happens.
True. This happens actually. Personally experienced a lot.
I know. I also experienced this. So these are all our limiting beliefs. So beliefs that limit us from writing but do not have actually physical significance. We will talk about them. And then we have a very big limiting belief, which is let me finish this first and then I will write. So let me make this graph, let me post-process this data, let me finish this simulation, and once I will have this, then I will have everything, and then I will start writing.
Yeah, this is actually a lot of a major problem, I can say. Even it happens, like, let's say we have 4 chapters. We feel like, okay, first let's complete the first chapter. No, only then we go to the second chapter, only then the third chapter. Even though we have a data for, let's say, the second and third chapter, like, no, I'll complete the second chapter completely, full, perfect, like a perfectionist, only then I go to third. But the problem is, by the time I go to third, already I took a lot of time in the second chapter. Now, even though I have a lot of data, now I can't write this data because I'm totally confused, or this time limit is going to affect me, and a lot of all these problems.
Yeah. And then you're absolutely right. And then connecting to this is a major belief. I am not sure if what I am writing is correct, right?
True.
And usually we produce a lot of writing and then later realize exactly like you were mentioning. So maybe this is not right, and maybe I should not write. I should not have written it like this, and maybe I should change that. And then we start working on that again, right? And I have really nice answers to them. But what I will do is I will suggest a few things here. And the biggest thing is, remember that a good thesis is a done thesis. That is the only characteristic of a good thesis. It has nothing to do with the figures should be of this quality, the text should be of this length, the English should be foolproof. It should be done and finalized and be on the table.
True.
Right? And when we start talking about these challenges or problems, there is a simple way of going around these limiting beliefs. And what we can do is we can start with this idea of first draw a clear outline, right? So your thesis will always have an outline. I think this is also something that we discussed.
Yeah. You suggested me, and that actually helped me, because with this outline, I have an idea now. Okay, what am I lacking, or where to write, what to write? I have a little idea now. It's like at least in the initial days when I made this outline, now I can add it a little or delete it, but I have an idea, okay, where to what to write, or where to write, what exactly I'm missing, or do I need to do any more research, or do I need to learn any more papers, or read any papers, or anything. Yeah, it's helping a lot.
Yeah. So once you have this outline, so how I understand this is it is like fill in the blanks. So it already gives you all the blanks you need to fill. You have to make this outline as detailed as possible. You have to make it with your own understanding, and then you also have to discuss this for example with your supervisors, with your examiners, with your colleagues. Maybe you should also compare this outline with the previous similar master thesis you have. So this should be a framework that you will follow. So you should invest a lot of time in preparing this outline. And I think this is not very difficult, because this is relatively standard. So you start with the introduction chapter, and then the state of the art, and then you define your problems, then you define your objectives, and then onwards you go with, for example, your methodology, the detailed methodology as much as you can go, and then you will share results, discussion, conclusions, and maybe you can, while you're making this methodology, while you're making this outline, maybe you can write some bullets that what will I cover here and what will I cover there. And of course, this is not that rigid. So this outline might continue to change as you will work, but you have to start with something.
True. Like you said, it's actually not something so difficult, because it's like a standardized, or not exactly standardized also. Even let's say if I'm doing a work about steel, now someone could have already did some work about steel and wrote a master thesis. So now I can see this thing, so I'll have an idea, okay, this is how I can write. Or let's say now I'm working on simulations, so now I see people who already worked on simulations, who already wrote their master thesis or PhD thesis or any thesis. Now I have an idea, okay, how to make my outline initially. Then this will help me to improvise according to my let's say topic, or what exactly I'll be doing, and then I can add or I can delete, but this is gonna help a lot, because initial days where it's like a desert, where we don't know which way to go, right or left or straight or back. Now we have an idea. Now it's like a signboard. It shows go straight and then take a right. It's like that. The outline is gonna give me an idea. Okay, this is my first initial step. From here I can start like this way. I can go. Then accordingly we can plan our journey.
Yeah. So once you have so the next step is, once you have this outline, the next step is start filling these gaps, right? But the goal here is, do not write the final version first. The biggest problem that we do with writing is, we think that whatever we are writing here should be foolproof. It should automatically be according to the expectations of the supervisor or the examiner. And that is the biggest mistake that we do. So remember that you do not write the final version first. You just try to fill in the gaps, and anything that you're filling there is actually helping you to write. For example, sometimes it is easy to write some bullets. So for example, in the introduction, I will write the first paragraph about this, and then the second paragraph about this, and third one and fourth one like this and this. Maybe this is helpful. Sometimes you want to, for example, say, okay, so I want to make this kind of figure here, so I will make this sketch and then put it in my document. So you're not really making that figure, putting it there, adjusting all the colors and line thicknesses and sizes, but you're just getting whatever is in your head on page, and that is always helpful. So you do not have to put yourself in writing the final version first. You can just start filling in the spaces as much whatever you think is right or accurate, right?
True.
And what will happen is that you will not try to be perfect from the very first point. So you will give your space, okay, I can write this sentence however I'm thinking about it. I do not have to worry about writing a perfect sentence and how this will connect with the next paragraph or the next paragraph. And then you will give yourself space and room for error. And this will help you a lot with, for example, okay, I'm just writing this, I'm writing that. I don't have to worry about mistakes. I don't have to worry about spellings. I can just put my thoughts on page, right? And I do not have to worry about nice figures or graphs. And then you just have to keep it casual at the beginning. So this mindset will help you reduce a lot of friction in your process, right? And then how I think of this is that understand main parts of your thesis. And thesis follows from the title page and then onwards with several acknowledgements and contents and blah blah. And then, for example, they reach introduction, problem statement, introduction, state of the art, problem statement, objectives. But you do not always have to write your thesis in this manner, right? How I see is maybe it is easiest to start with the problem statement, because that is the first thing that is on your table even before you start doing anything, right? Once you have written your problem statement roughly, again, we are talking again here,
everything roughly,
casually, right?
Yeah.
So however you understand your problem statement at the beginning, just write it there. Then, for example, after problem statement, it is much easier to start with the methodology, right? Because you're doing simulations, I clicked on this, then I clicked on this, or experimentally, I cut my samples with this tool like this, and then I test them on this machine with this speed, with these directions, I get data like this. So this is all methodology. It is quite intuitive, quite easy to follow. You can fill this gap in.
And simultaneously, we can write it so that the time is also saved end of the day. Like, let's say at the end, I don't have any problem. Let's say now if I'm writing, like when I'm working the same day, I'm writing a little roughly. Now at the end, I don't have a lot of stress, oh my God, and all, because already this time is saved. So now I can focus on making that better. Let's say I wrote in one point, now I can make this point a paragraph later.
That is what we were talking about.
Like I remember one thing, I just want to add now. One day you told me, I remember this thing. I don't remember exactly during my thesis or during the research seminar, but what you said is it's better to write bad instead of not at all writing.
Yeah.
It's like, it's better, because this actually helped me, because at least now if I wrote some lines roughly, now I understand, okay, later at least I have some data with which I can make paragraphs or make some more information or search about it. But if I haven't wrote anything, then end of the day, it's like, okay, where should I start? Or what should I write? It's like complete, it's like confusion on top of confusion.
Yeah. So that is what we are talking about. Now, so writing does not have to follow the actual guideline of the thesis. You can just write however you feel appropriate. So my way of doing this is, for example, starting with the problem statement, then writing methodology, then maybe starting with the results, not all the results, some results that I continue to get. And then maybe once I have some results and I am comparing my results with literature, then I can start writing introduction and state of the art, because these are the papers I'm reading, these are the papers I'm comparing my data with, and it is always nice to put them in the state of the art or introduction, because later you will want to discuss your results with them, and therefore there comes then discussion, and maybe then you start seeing some of the conclusions of your thesis when you're discussing this with your supervisor or when you're discussing this with your colleague. So I learned this thing and I learned that, so this is the new outcome there. And once you have covered this, then for example you can follow with the other parts: objectives, abstracts, keywords, titles, authors. In your master thesis there will be only one author, but this is a more intuitive approach and more easy to fill approach, rather than starting with an introduction and then writing conclusions at the end. That does not make sense, right? And the most important thing is start with the end in mind. So the idea is that in the end, you want to have a finished, nicely polished thesis. So whatever you are doing, whatever you are writing will be a part of that thesis in one way or another. It does not have to be perfect, but it will be there. So your outlines, whatever you're writing there, your bullets, your figures, your scheme of how you're producing figures, everything. Plan your writing, plan your data in a way that you know, okay, I have to connect everything in the end, right?
True.
This is very helpful. For example, when you start with the end in mind, you automatically start logging your data. So I always advise my students that from the very first day, have a PowerPoint file with you, and then on every slide, just put whatever you have done in that day while you are working on the thesis, because then maybe you will produce figures, because then maybe you have read something, you will collect those lines there, and it will automatically convert into a rough draft of your diary. So whatever you are doing every day, whatever you're learning or doing, and comparing results, and every day they will start to improve. And this diary will help you with the guideline or the storyline that you have been following, and that is how you can go to the next step. No? So once you have this diary, it will be very easy to pick up things from this diary and then put them in the spaces or the outlines that you would have already built, right? And this is where everything starts to connect. And this will be a perpetuating cycle, because you will find out new things, you will create space for those things, and you will copy and paste those things. So now at this point, maybe you will have a document, a Word document if you are using Microsoft Word, with headings that sometimes have figures, sometimes have bullets, sometimes have doodles, sometimes have your thoughts, or sometimes have lines from other references or other research papers, some comments from your supervisor that you should include this here. So whatever you are thinking, doing, it will go in the direction of helping you with the filling these gaps in the document, right? So this is how you will quickly finish. You will quickly fill in spaces for this first draft.
So yeah, whatever you said. So initially, as you said, there's a lot of work people have to do, but not so much stressful work. But we started like it's just like how let's say I want to make a story out of it. Like this is like a story, like what I see as like end of the day, I should make it in a story that other person will understand clearly what I did from the start of the end. So the story should not be like initially I can make it anyway, but end of the day I should just connect the points and make it a perfection. Like the perfect thesis.
We are not talking about perfection yet. We are just talking about how to reduce friction as much as possible to just put things in your document very easily without working hard on it, right? So then now the idea is that you will have these bullet points there, you will have some figures and some data in your thesis, and then you can take a look, see an overview of what you have written, what is already there, what is missing, and the things they are missing is something that you have to work on. You have to fill those gaps, right? Once you have that, my advice always is that then stop working, right? Stop producing more graphs, stop producing more figures, stop doing things. Then work on preparing your initial draft. What an initial draft is it contains a lot of text. It tries to explain this story in terms of words. It is still quite abstract, right? And the most easiest way of doing this is how I do it is I turn on my phone recorder, right? And I just I have pages in front of me, and I just start speaking in whatever language I'm comfortable in. So I start saying, okay, I am in this section, and in this section I want to write about this, and therefore I set up. I have shown this figure. In this figure, red is this, green is this, black is this. The flow lines represent this. And in this figure, one can see that it started from here, it went here, and the graph shows the trends are going upwards or downwards, and it is ranging from this to this, and this is how it is comparable to these two values or things, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is that that you will just record yourself
Like an audiobook.
telling a story to someone. Some people find it easier to record it to themselves. Some people find it easier to, for example, talk to someone else, explain them what they did, and then record that. But the important thing is you record in whatever language you are most comfortable in whatever language your thoughts flow, right? And then, for example, you will have recordings of sections, maybe of introduction, maybe of state of the art, maybe of some results, maybe of some methodology, right? But it will, when you will have gaps, when you will have written points, bullets there, when you will have figures there, it will be much easier to look at that page and think why this thing is here, and why did I write it, or why did I construct this figure, and what story does it tell. Once you have recorded yourself, then you don't have to think about that, right? All you have to do is put your headphones in, listen to that recording, and whatever you have said, start typing it, right? And that typing will be, I have put this figure here because of this, these lines represent this and that, and so on and so on.
I felt this is a very good idea because like what you said, let's say it means like I have an audiobook of my thesis. Now, even let's say I'm listening when, let's say outside, I'm outside going somewhere for a walk or something, I'm listening. And even it can help me get ideas or something. Let's say, oh, okay, then I can add these things here, or let's say I can make these points more. And also it can give me an ideas also, because it's like till now I'm the author. Now it's like I'm not just author, but I'm like a person who is, like, say some X person is telling me his story. Now I'm listening to it. Now even that makes me gets new ideas or new thoughts. So this is a very good idea.
So the idea always is, I find it hard to think and write simultaneously, because when you're thinking about a figure, you're always thinking of, I'm writing about this. Maybe I should put an arrow here so this area is visible. Or maybe I should compare this figure with that figure. Or maybe I should add these trends to this figure as well, because it will be easy to understand. But while I'm thinking this, it is hard to focus on writing, because then these are all the points that are going through my mind. And the easiest way is that once I will start thinking about something, of course, when I'm writing, I think about a lot of ideas. When I will start thinking about it, I will forget what I wanted to write, so how I wanted to proceed. But if I have recorded myself first, and then it is very easy to, for example, pause wherever I am, write down all my thoughts. I want to change this in that figure. I want to add new figure here. I want to add these trends here. Do this, do that, do this, do that. And then continue to listen to yourself and start typing again. And then that story will always be there. It will not go anywhere. You will not forget it, and something like this, right?
Yeah.
This will help you create this, we call it V0. So version 0, which will have all your thoughts on the page, but it will not be a nice thesis. So you will not be able to put it on someone's table. All you have to do is find a quiet corner or room, go through your document, and be very open and blunt about, I should change this here, I should improve this figure here, and maybe you already have some points there, so I must add new figure here, and I must change this, and I must compare this, and I have to find literature about this idea and then write this here. So whatever, right? But you will already have all the instructions there, and maybe new ideas will be popping up in your mind. So just go through your document and sincerely focus on correcting all these points. Of course, stepping out from V0 and reaching V1 will be a huge time-taking process, because you will be reading every line, you will be correcting it, you will be doing a lot of work in the middle. But the story will all be on the page. You will not be missing any aspect. You will not be missing any, you will not be worrying about, oh, I still have to figure that out, or I have to still figure this out, and I don't know what will I do there and what should I write there. The story will be on the page. You will just be modifying it, making more connections, making it more reliable and interesting. Right? So transforming your thoughts, general ideas, simple language into more technical, understandable and easy to read language for anyone. What I believe is this path is much easier to follow. It is much easier to accomplish as compared to if you start writing, if you start thinking about writing the very first line that will stay in your thesis to the very end.
True. And I just want to ask you, when you said like it's a journey. Version 0, version 1, version 2, or how many versions, let's say. So it means like automatically we are taking feedback from ourselves.
Yes, first.
And also we are taking feedbacks from our supervisors.
Yes.
So I just want to ask you, because you already did your master's, PhD, and then you wrote thesis. Now you are the supervisor too. So you know how difficult it is. So I just want to ask, like, how important it is to take multiple feedbacks and write multiple versions, because this is personally, I had this issue and I saw many friends of also, let's say what we think is, okay, let me write the perfect document, then I'll show my supervisor. But this perfect document is never going to happen.
No,
like,
gonna happen,
because
yes.
Because it's just like I'm only seeing it every day. Like I feel like, nah, this is not good. This is not good. Maybe I should change it. Maybe I should write this 2 pages extra and then I show it. It's like the V0 is not going to V1, or V2. V1 is not going to V2. So I just want from your experience, and like right now you're a supervisor too. So what you suggest people, like how important it is to for multiple feedbacks and this multiple versions to show your supervisor what exactly the progress and how the things are.
So ideally, if you would have read several research papers, and for example, if you have talked to different people and you have had read other theses, you would already have this internal moral compass or technical compass to say, this paragraph looks nice, this paragraph does not look nice. Now there are more tools, for example, generative AI tools. So if you have your own thoughts on the page, you can use these tools to very quickly transform that text into something nice, right? You do not have to do it all by yourself. It is your thoughts, your ideas. You're just using this tool to make it easily readable. Right? So that is why having V0 is super important, because now you can very quickly convert this V0 into V1, right? Which is very easy to understand. Once you have done that, you will always go through this and you will give your 100%. So your heart should be satisfied with, okay, whatever I did, whatever I could, I have written this here and this seems appropriate in these 2 weeks of time I had. And now I have this text. Before I work further on it, I just want to get feedback from someone. So the idea is always slowly go up the hierarchy. So first talk to your colleagues or your friends, or maybe if your parents have some experience with it, and ask them to read these 5 or 10 pages and tell you if they can understand it. If they can, you already did a wonderful job. If they can't, then they will tell you why they couldn't understand something, and then you can just work on that. And once they reach that level, then it is already good enough, right? So you have to pass through multiple steps before rejecting it yourself. Let other people read it and tell you why they could understand it better or they couldn't understand it better. And instead of directly sharing with supervisor, maybe it is much easier to share with your colleague or someone who sits with you, to ask them if they can read 2 pages and tell you if they are fine. If they are fine, then that's enough, right? That means the other thesis is also representative. These 2 pages are representative of the other thesis, which means if they can understand this, all the other thesis follows this path, and it is already good enough, right?
You're saying this when we read a lot of research papers or papers like thesis from other people. This actually made me remembered me a point, a very important point, what I felt personally, because we have this thing of comparison. Like always in life, we have this thing of comparison. So when we read others' thesis, we are generally in the V0, V1 stage. Let's say other thesis is like it's already completed, submitted. We have this feeling also inside, oh my God, this thesis looks so good and perfect. Like my thesis is like, not at all. It's like compare, it's nothing. So where, what, and everything. Even this fear is also one of the main problem for the like stopping the progress. And what I observed is one of the main problem. Like it demotivates, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just want
I
you
understand.
to tell
I
about
understand, but you will only but they are just to guide you. So how it should look like. You do not have to exactly follow them. Remember, for example, in my work, the PhD thesis that I submitted to university was V24, right? V24.
24. Okay.
And usually the research papers that we publish with nice journals are usually V12, V14, something like this.
God.
So they are not V0. They're not even V1. They're usually more than V10s, which means we have read through this document, we have modified it extensively, and then it is called a new version. And you have to remember that you're reading a V10 and you're at V0. Just get help from this to see how this should be written and do your 100% in a limited time, right? But that is where I want to go forward with. For example, what are some general nice tips and practices that I have learned with time, and you can use them. For example, converting this V0 into V1, right?
Yeah.
So story until V0 is clear, right?
True.
So all your thoughts, figures, doodles, sketches, diagrams, everything goes into the document with instructions of I will do this here, I will do that here, I will do this here, I will do that here. And that is your V0, right?
Yeah.
So all the gaps are filled with your thoughts. And now you want to convert that into a presentable document, and that is what we are calling V1. And the idea is, how can you do that, right? The first great tip that I have is invest in writing tools, right? So for example, when you want to convert your V0 into V1, investing in, for example, ChatGPT Pro nowadays using generative AI will be a lifesaver. Because if you know how to do prompt engineering, you will very quickly be able to write explanation of figures. You will be very able to convert your thoughts or bullet points into paragraphs. You will be very able to concisely write whatever your thoughts were into a nice technical readable paragraph or a document, right?
Yeah, it does all the work. Like
yes,
it's very nice tool actually.
But you have to feed it the right information. True. And where does that come from? Your V0.
Yeah. This is actually, even for me personally also, it helped me, because this is going to help. Because let's say I have a paragraph. Now I have confusion. Like, is it grammatically correct? Am I going perfectly to the audience that what I want to say them? Is it going correctly, precisely, academically? Am I writing everything? Or something like these things, like from V0, when I, let's say, like use a ChatGPT, I ask ChatGPT, okay, help me with this thing. Like it gives me instantly. Now I don't need to put a lot of time and this thing. It gives me instantly. Now I have an idea, okay, where to change or what to change, or if everything is correct or something like that.
Yeah. While we are here, there are so this is generative AI tool, and this is not the only AI tool that you can use. For example, you can use typeset.io to read documents, to understand equations or models, to understand meaning of certain terms in certain directions. You can use Elicit, for example, to find relevant research papers, to find to ask scientific questions, and then it will go through the literature to give you answers. You can also, for example, I highly recommend using lit maps, because if you have some data or literature, you can use lit maps to, for example, populate your library, find clusters of documents that you might be missing, and this is also very helpful. And for example, tools like this, so not just generative AI tools, but other tools that can help you with fastening up your process of finding literature, reading literature, understanding what their stance is, and then creating your own ideas and theories about it. Then, for example, I also suggest that investing in or having a citation manager is always beneficial right from the beginning, so you can manage your literature. And then if your English is not great, considering a language correction tool, for example, Write for or Grammarly is always a great idea. They have their free versions, they have their paid versions. You can always use free version, for example, of Grammarly to do most of the things. You do not have to buy the paid version. But all these things will help you convert your V0 into V1. Right?
Yeah.
So investing a little bit in them will save you a lot of time and pain and struggle and effort later. And important thing to know is that you will always have to invest a lot of time in learning these tools. So that time that you will invest in learning these tools also goes towards basically actually writing. So writing, in my mind, does not just mean when you are writing a perfect sentence. It means when you're thinking about it. It means when you're learning how to do it. It means when you're discussing with people about your thesis or writing. It means when you're recording your audios. It means when you're reading literature. So everything that you're doing is actually writing. So learning about how to use these tools appropriately, watching some YouTube videos, going through some courses, learning how to appropriately use language, text editors, for example, LaTeX or Word, is the time you're investing in writing. So do not consider it separate, right? So this is a very important tip. And the sentence that I've written is learning how to write is also writing, right? So do not consider it a separate thing. Then, for example, the thing that I suggest the most is use a dictation tool. Word has a dictation tool. There are now dictation tools available online. The problem with dictation tools is that you have to record in English. You cannot record in any other language. But if you are looking at a figure and you are just speaking out about it and you're recording, it is very easy to transform that 10-15 minutes recording into the form of text with just 2 or 3 clicks, and you will not have to sit there with your headphones in and typing. True. You will have that text right on your screen. Converted, you will have your audio converted into text with 2-3 clicks, and then, for example, you can use a generative AI tool to transform that text into a nice format, and this reduces friction so much. So I see that dictation seems to be a very intuitive, nice, short tool, but many people do not use it, and therefore they lag with, for example, I have to sit and I have to type. No, you just have to speak and the computer will do the rest for you.
Like you said, technology is actually helping us a lot.
Yes,
compared to before.
Nowadays things have changed a lot, no? And there are transcriptions. You can again learn about how to use these tools for free online anywhere, right? Then the good thing always is to learn to outsource. You have to know what you are good at and what others are good at. For example, you have colleagues who know how to use Excel properly, or who know how to use MATLAB properly. Get their help. Let them help you. Share your data with them. Share your ideas with them. So you have to know where to delegate tasks and where to share these things with others instead of trying to do everything on your own. Right? So, for example, if you see someone's thesis and they have produced really nice figures, it is very nice idea to just call them and ask, how did you produce these figures? And can you give me your template so that I do not have to figure it out on my own? True. So, outsourcing things and learning to connect with good human resources is always the best idea, instead of trying to learn everything on your own and doing things, because of course you can do that. You will just consume a lot of time, and you do not have that while you're working on your thesis, right? So this is a nice tip. And then, for example, collaborate with your peers. So if someone is reading your thesis, of course, they will expect that when they would have written something, you will read theirs, right? So this reading someone else's work and helping someone else will also contribute to your writing. In the end, making good connections, having good friends will also contribute to your writing in the future. So think in these terms as well. This is super helpful.
Yeah, it's like a win and win situation.
Yes. Then there are some suggestions like make reading your habit. So usually when we start writing, we stop reading, and that flushes all the ideas from our minds. If we continue to read, more ideas come to our minds, and we can improve our reading, improve our writing much more, because then we can see new figures. We can see different text written, and then it helps us when we are making the final versions. It helps us polish our text if we are continuously reading. But if we are not, then the ideas stop coming. So we will never know how we can improve this figure if we have never seen a better figure, right? So that is important. The most important thing that I've written is write consistently. So what they always say is you have to, instead of finding time to write, you have to give time to writing. So always, for example, before going for a job, instead of waking up at 6 or 7, wake up at 4 or 5. Say that this first hour before I brush my teeth, before I do anything, is for writing. Just open up your laptop, reduce a lot of friction, just sit there, whatever comes to your mind, write. And then if nothing comes to your mind, doodle or record or sketch or write bullet points or read some article or do something. But this block is for writing, and then everything is in writing. I have to sit here, look at my pages and go through them. There is no way around it. I have to invest. So you have fixed a block, and then you do something about your thesis in this time.
True. Consistency, the path to success,
right?
actually.
So every day you have to do this. And the idea is that on some days you will be much better with this, and some days you will just be staring at your page. And remember that if you have spent that time staring at your page and nothing crossed your mind, it is fine and okay. Leave it, go on, do something else, and then come back to it in the next block, right? And most of the days will be that once you have V0, if you will look at a page, you will have bullet points, you will have figure, you will have a lot of tasks to do. So you will always have something to work on rather than not. And then most of the times what happens is that the block that we always have, that is always there for us to work in, usually we surpass that. So if we have blocked, for example, I will work on my thesis for 30 minutes every day. Some days it is 15 or 20 minutes, and most of the days it is more than 30 minutes. So when the mind is working, we usually get a lot of work done. And then the last thing is you're unique, right? So all these techniques that I've shared are not universal. You do not have to use them all. They're just there for you to try and practice and see which one works for you more. Maybe talking to someone works for you more. Maybe just having long walks works for you more. Maybe starting with a register and a pen for writing headlines and writing bullets, it helps you more. And maybe then sitting with a tablet and then a keyboard right in front of you helps you more. But you have to try and see which one works for you more, and then you can go along that. So I have met people who said it is very hard for me to speak my ideas out, but it is very easy for me to sketch them. Yeah. So what I do is I sit with a register, I do that instead of recording, and that helps me with the writing a lot than if I record. But for example, recording is better for me.
Everyone has their own things, because some, like you said, some like recording, some can doodle, some can write. Like for me personally, I don't read a lot. So now I'm reading it. So it's like, oh my God, it's tough. But if I hear something, I can hear for like even 2-3 hours also. But some people, they like only reading instead of just listening. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And once we have discussed all this and we come back to our limiting beliefs that we talked about, I want to share some suggestions about that. So generally, the limiting belief, as we talked in the beginning, was only if I could find a big block of time. So the idea is, instead of finding time to write, allot time to write. No? This will block something in your day whenever you're not doing, whenever you think you will be able to sit for a specific amount of time and on the thesis. It does not have to be a big block, or it does not have to be a very short block, but there has to be a block in every day, right? It can be right after you wake up, or right before you go to sleep. It can be in the middle of the day, whatever, wherever, right? And then, for example, the limiting belief was I need to do more work or read more work before I can start writing. And then what I always say is writing is more than typing words, right? Reading, working, organizing, outlining, brainstorming, planning is all part of writing. And do not narrow down writing to, if I am not typing, it is not writing, because everything is helping you write your V0 and then convert your V0 to V1. And then I need better tools to write more. And the idea always is, people have been writing very nice books with just their typewriters and nothing more. So the less is better. The less tools you will have, the less clutter you will have on your desk, the less tabs you would have open, it will be easier to write. If you will have more clutter, if you will have more things to work with, the harder it will be to write. You do not need a new laptop. You do not need a new keyboard. You do not need a new desk or a new chair. Everything is fine. You just have to block your time and then start typing, right? I'm waiting until I feel like it, right? And there I say, bad writing is a million times better than no writing. Do not wait until you feel like writing good. Just write, and it will automatically transform. Some sections of your thesis you will like more than the others, but in the end, a good thesis is a done thesis, not the best written thesis, right? Again, this is a limiting belief that is connected with the previous one. So let me finish this first and then I will write. And the idea is schedule time to write rather than trying to find time slots. No? Yeah. So whenever time for writing comes, you just sit there and type rather than thinking, oh, first I should do this and then that. No, this is time for writing. Just do that. And I'm not sure if I'm writing it well is, do not write the final version first, write the abstract ideas, continue to get your feedback, and then you will eventually slowly transform this raw version to the final version. And remember, you can move upwards as much as you want, as much as time you will have, right? So if you have a rough version, you can always share this with someone. They will give you feedback. You can improve that. You can share that improved version with someone. They will give you feedback. You can further improve that. So there is no limit in moving upwards. Remember that. So you can make your thesis as good as possible, as nice, as neat as possible in the given time you will have. But you have to have the V0 first, and then you can always increase but you cannot have -1 version.
Yeah, true.
Right? So you must have V0, and then you can always move upwards. That depends on how much time you will have. The more time you will invest in, the better thesis you will get. But if you will have less time, you will not have chance to improve. That does not mean your work was bad. You could not write. That only means I only had this time. I could only do this much. And that is the most important point.
Yeah. And also, like you said, good is a done thesis, and it's also a very important part. So we have to always think about it and give some time for that, like how we give time for eating and sleeping. So it's like, yes, end of the day, this is also a part, because it's not just, okay, I write it one day, it will be done, or 2 days it will be done, because it's a work of almost 6 months, technically thesis work. And this thesis is not just a thesis, but it's like 2 or 3 years of your master's or bachelor's or PhD, or how many years of your work. End of the day, even if you go to a job, the first question they'll ask is, what did you do in your thesis? Most of the companies or interviews happen this way, because that's how important the part, like in our life, this thesis is going to be a part. So yeah, of course we have to give, like initially it might be tough to change our schedules and all, but like you said, if we're consistent, give every day the time and make things like from V0, if we start at, then end of the day, automatically we can be the best and have a very good thesis. And of course, this experience is also very important, because it will remind all our life, okay, we did something so great. Let's say I did this thing during my master's, during my thesis, I did all this hard work, and end of the day, that feels happiness also.
Yeah. Continuing this point, what I want to add here is that this is not the last writing that you will do in your life. This is the only first formal writing that will have a lot of weight that you will do, and you will continue to write more important, more bigger projects, documents for the rest of your life. True. Right? After masters. And this, going through this process, learning about how you can write quickly and effectively and efficiently, and setting up your tools, will help you prepare for the upcoming projects or documents, because they will have more weight. They will have higher weightage in your life, and you want to know how you write effectively and how you write efficiently while writing your thesis, so that you practice these tools and everything's in order. So learning this will not end with submitting your thesis. It will only begin with submitting your thesis, right? And then what I want to come to the last is you mentioned somewhere that you also want to know how the thesis is evaluated.
Yeah, true. Because let's say it's 30 credits normally
Mhm.
in let's say my course,
Mhm.
which is a very huge amount of credits, and which is going to affect my score.
Yeah.
And all. So, and also this presentation and all, we know, and I want to know how it's graded. So I'll have an idea, and everyone will have an idea, like how to prepare or what all the points are, and what are, let's say many people don't know. They think, okay, I do the presentation and it's done, or they just read the book and it's done. But I'm sure it's not just the presentation or just the book, but there are a lot of things inside
Yeah.
they'll consider. So I just want you to tell, so we can understand how this thing works.
So I have here the tabular report of the student work, which every supervisor has to fill, at least from our institute, to give a grade to the student at the end, right? And you will see that it contains a lot of that it has, this rubric has a lot of steps involved, which we have to grade you on, and at the end you will get a grade. So we will start from the first thing first, implementation of the work. Right. So how was the work style of the student, and how deep was the scientific thinking of the student? Of course, these are the questions that only a supervisor can answer well, because was the student confident enough? Was he asking the right questions? Was he searching the right literature? Was he independently going out, connecting with people, reading literature, coming with answers? Or was he just sitting there saying, yeah, you have to tell me and only then I will be able to do? Because what we want to do is, in the end, we want to see if you're able to independently find ways to solve a scientific problem that you have been assigned, right? And we are preparing you for the real life challenges or problems. So we want to see if you know that there is this problem, will you be independently able to go and find out right sources for this problem, and will you be able to read them, understand them, and develop your own intuition and understanding about them, right? So so you will see that there are some points given to this, right? And then the most of the points are given to quality of the work results, right? So how was the representation? So methodology, argumentation in your thesis, how did you represent what you did, right? How well it was written. Then how good was your literature work? So were you able to find the relevant literature? Were you able to discuss its importance, and so on? And then, for example, experimental or numerical work. So how good were you with the experimental or the numerical work? Were you able to learn it quickly? Were you able to use your learnings to produce results and use that to create something new, right? So then we are also checking this. And then, for example, evaluation of the results. So once you see the results, you see one thing is higher than the other, one curve is higher than the other. Are you able to understand what does this mean, right? Are you able to understand, for example, if you did 20 tests, what was better in one test than the other, right? So and again, for example, degree of fulfillment or complexity. So how deep did you go into the problem, and how well you could understand this structure in detail? Of course, it is a combined effort of how your supervisor was looking at you, and what do they think about it, and then how did you write in your thesis. Sometimes the best thesis is where all these points are evident from the thesis. And a very bad direction is when, for example, you did very well, you were doing all these things in real life, but in your thesis you could not invest enough time to show these results, and therefore you will get relatively lesser marks here, right? So your supervisor will be there to say, yeah, you did everything right, but you did not have enough time to write, and therefore we get these reports from 3 people, 2 examiners who read your thesis and your supervisor. So we see what everyone is saying about it. Two examiners only read your thesis. Your
Exactly.
supervisor has worked with you, so he gives his feedback. And then usually what we do is we give more weightage to the points that supervisor has given. But if the points are significantly different, then they're averaged out, because then that means, supervisor knew something, but in the thesis, you could not perform well, or the other way around. So in the thesis, you wrote very nicely. That means supervisor you could not communicate your work properly to the supervisor, but you understood it very well and you've written it very well in your thesis, right? So the other way around as well. The best idea is your supervisor is very well convinced that you did all your work, and it is very much visible in your thesis as well. So that is a very nice work.
Balancing both.
Yes. And then, for example, you will see there are some points to form of the written version, and that is what we focus most on. But that is not the most important rubric in the whole scheme of things, right? So how was your thesis logically following? How was it written? Was the English correct? Were the images fine? Were the captions okay? Was the format similar? And what was the font style? And how were the references things? And it's like this. So all this is here. And then if you have done exceptionally great job, then there are some places where we can give you some extra points, right? And we calculate all these points, and based on them, then we see, for example, based on this grade where your written thesis grade lies. And then there is a completely different story for presentations that has a completely different rubric, that has a completely different grade system. And at the end, the final grade results from 50% weightage of written thesis, 50% weightage of your presentation, and then we average them out to combine your grade at the end. But what you will see here is that this rubric very nicely captures almost all the aspects we want you to learn during your master thesis. And it is not just about how good it is written, it is also about how you are working, what was your attitude, how confident you were, how better you could understand everything. And that is also what matters here. And then, for example, if everything was clear, I repeat this, I say this multiple times, but the examiners and supervisor are always looking at, were you able to clearly define your problem statement? Were you able to clearly define the research gap which is present in the previous research? Were you able to clearly define your objectives, and how intuitively and nicely in a way of a nice story, or in so much detail you could write your methodology, and then how well you could explain your results, and then in the discussion part, how well you could compare your results with what is already presented, and what are the good things and what are the bad things, and what are the conclusions, and how well you could elaborate the new learnings from what you did, right? So what we are doing is we are trying to learn all this from we are trying to see this in this rubric, and that is more important. What we usually forget is that writing the thesis and this looking nice is a small part of the end evaluation that we carry out.
True. And it's like what I observed, like what I understood from what you said is, it's not just writing part, but how deep we are going, what all this, let's say, the style, the style is mattered here, what we are understanding, how good we are working.
Yes.
Everything is considered
yes.
here.
So how fundamentally you understand your work, how fundamentally do you understand what are the outcomes of your work, how does it compare, and all these things.
Let's say, like you said, even it's gonna prepare us for the future. Let's say
Yes.
even in research institute, let's say in the future, or in a company or somewhere, all these points, this looks just like points right now, but in the companies or somewhere where we are working, all these are actually helpful for our future. It's like what I can see is it's not just assessing our thesis, but it's like showing how ready I am for the future, or for the challenges in my future, or something like that.
Yes, exactly. So with this, I know there are a lot of points that we can be that could be discussed about writing, but generally these are my thoughts. I hope these points will be helpful for you in writing your thesis more effectively and efficiently,
Yeah, lot.
and producing the V0 and then maybe reaching the V1 according to something that we discussed here. And if you want, I will be able to share these documents with you so you can look at them again yourself and then prepare and hopefully finish your thesis well in time.
Thank you so much.
Oh.
And Dr. Karim, I can say it's a very good information that I
Mhm.
got today, and everyone who hear this podcast will be very, very much beneficial from this
Yeah.
thing, because it's going to help a lot during thesis. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And
Then
I would like to add a couple of points
Mhm.
for this, like from my personal experience, like I already discussed with you and you also suggested me, like things we need to consider, like mental health during the thesis and
Mhm.
controlling our stresses, and also the financial stress, especially this always comes to people, students
Yes.
from thesis part, because we should consider these things. And
that is why
managing
that is
this.
why we always have this questionnaire that we always do with students who are about to start their thesis to gauge how well will they perform. And as you were mentioning that you could not understand where these questions were coming from, and they also seem quite personal. So how much savings you have, and then what does it have to do with the thesis that I'm about to do? But what we have learned in the past duration is that this state is super important for your success in the thesis later, and those points do play a role some way or another. Managing your mental stress and your physical health during working on your thesis. I know it is stressful. It is meant to be stressful. So if you are stressed in the thesis, absolutely everything is fine. If you're not stressed during working on your thesis, then something is bad. And then it is a problem. So it is meant to be stressful. It has to be stressful. We are also testing how well you perform, for example, when you're under stress.
Yeah.
Also, when you're writing your thesis, you have this deadline. Also, for example, when you're in presentation, you are precipitating, you are nervous, you are not able to think clearly, and we know that, and we still want you to go through that to see how well you perform under these situations and circumstances. If you're not feeling all that and you're still going through your thesis, then it is a problem, and you should work on that. But the thing is, there are ways of managing it, and there are ways of these things not come in the way of your writing, but that is a completely separate discussion.
Yeah, true. It's going to take very long, I'm sure.
Yeah. And this is something that maybe you can talk about in the future. But for now, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for discussing your real concerns. And I hope you could learn something today.
Yeah, I learned a lot actually. And thank you so much for your time, Dr. Qayyum, and for a lot of helpful information that I'm sure is going to help me personally, and also whoever listens this and who's going to write the thesis in the future, or who are writing the thesis also.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Then, bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.